Hey YouTube, this is Robert NES 816, and today I'm going to demonstrate how a properly working front-loader NES console should work. So this is actually the NES console that I cleaned up in that video that I posted a while back. So I keep getting asked these questions. What do I use to clean my 72-pin connector in my NES? And I keep telling people CLR. And it's gotten to a point now where, you keep repeating yourself over and over again, and it kind of gets tiring because, you can only show people things so many times before you're like, fuck it. So anyways, when it comes down to it, there's a couple of conditions that need to be met with your NES console when you find one. You can't just pick anything and assume that it's going to work, because there's this rumor going around where it's like the NES console is tough as nails and, blah, 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 it'll last forever, yada, yada, yada. The truth of the matter is, when you find this thing, it's been sitting in someone's basement or garage or wherever for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's most likely going to be in shit condition. There are, however, often enough anyways, with cases where people took good care of them and then put them in boxes and forgot about them. Those consoles are the ones that you kind of want to try to find, or in a rare case where you find one that's like complete in the box and in really good shape or hardly used. So this is an example of a NES console where someone took good care of it to begin with, and they put it in a box, and then they eventually got tired of it. So this one I took apart, cleaned it up, and I clean it with a product called CLR, which is a easy to obtain metal cleaner. So what it does is it removes contaminants from the metal, like corrosion, rust, tarnish, anything like that. So with the Nintendo Entertainment System and any cartridge system, they use copper on the contacts. And what happens with copper is it gets tarnished after a while, and the same thing with these cartridges. They get tarnished on them. And what happens is that when you put these in, when you put a cartridge into the system, you're basically trying to put electricity through tarnish and shit and anything that's not conductive. So when people blow on the cartridge, all that's doing is creating moisture, and moisture by itself is sort of conductive. So that's temporarily making a electrical contact that's making your game work. So that's not really a good thing to do, but sometimes it works, and if you don't know how to fix anything, then I guess do that. But when you find a NES console, I can guarantee you that it's not going to work on the first try, the second try, the third try, the 10th try. It's not going to work, period. You're going to get this when you first plug it in and put a game into it. That's it. The blinking light, and pretty much you might as well stop right there and learn how to fix something, because you can look on the internet and you can get a lot of bad information. Well, people will tell you to disable the 10NES chip. That'll make it more reliable. And the answer is simply no. The only thing that'll do is make the red light stop blinking, and you're still going to get a black screen. You're going to get drawable graphics. You're going to get nothing. So I have videos that show how to clean a 72-pin connector. So if you find a console that's in good shape to begin with, like I usually do, then you need to simply clean it. Or if the 72 pin is actually worn out, or if the pins are bent down slightly, and you have a really loose fit, you can either get one of those shitty Chinese connectors and pray to God that it lasts, or you can refurbish your 72 pin by taking the bottom pins and bending them up very, very slightly. So do not use sandpaper ever to clean these things, because sandpaper, I don't care how fine it is, sandpaper creates little channels that traps dirt and contaminants, and basically that will sit there and it will cause corrosion over time. So there's two things you can use that I have been using for a while now, work really good. The first one is Brasso. Brasso is good, but it's not perfect. The problem with Brasso is that if you do not remove all of it, it can actually cause corrosion because it has ammonia in it. However, it is still a metal polish, and it does a really good job at removing tarnish without completely destroying the pins. The second thing is to use automotive wax cleaner. Automotive wax cleaner basically is for removing impurities in car paint. So the cool thing about wax cleaner is that it has no ammonia in it, and it dries and pretty much comes right off in like a powder form. It doesn't cause corrosion, it doesn't damage anything. It actually kind of protects the metal a little bit. And then finally, people are under the assumption that simply using Q-tips and alcohol will always do the trick, and that isn't always the case. If you get games, like most of the time with your NES games, they're going to be pretty bad, and they're not going to work because you're removing 20 years of tarnish with Q-tips and rubbing alcohol, and that simply isn't going to do anything because it's not strong enough. So you need to take further actions with that, and I do have videos showing you how to either use Brasso or the wax cleaner. So I have been using the wax cleaner a lot more often because I find that it actually does give me better results and longer lasting results than Brasso does. It also seems to be less abrasive. So anyway, I'm going to go through all these games here. So these are all just a random pile of NES games that I have, and we're just going to put them in and see how our luck is. So I have 120 NES games. I'm not going to put them all in because that's retarded, but this is one of my front loaders. I have two more, and they all work as good as this one. So let's plug these games in and let's see what happens. So there's one thing to note too with the 782 pin. If you put a game in and you don't feel any type of resistance whatsoever, then that means that the pins on it need to be bent up a little bit. So we'll unplug this game, and I'll just kind of show you real quick if I can zoom in. Oops, before I bump the camera and destroy everything. So when you take a cartridge out, there should be a little teeny bit of resistance, not a lot, but just enough where you feel like the 72 pin grabbing on the board, and then when you push it in, you should kind of hear and feel a little bit of resistance. If you have like a Tengen cartridge, it'll be a little bit stiffer. So here's a Super Sprint. So this I know for a fact will be a little bit stiffer when you put it in. And that's it. So I'll put the camera back. Hopefully I won't bump the tripod, but let's put in some more games. And again, this system has not been modified in any way at all. It's just been cleaned, and that's pretty much it. So let's put in Super Sprint, see what happens. So if you are using a system with a disabled lockout chip and it is working for you, the thing is that it might be working for you, but say if you accidentally tug on a system by accident, you could loosen the cart, and that could basically cause the system to freeze. So you're halfway through your game and the system freezes because it's dirty. So you really haven't increased its reliability at all. You've put a band-aid on something that needs to be addressed. People will go, oh well, they took the lockout chip on a top loader, so that must be a good thing. And the answer to that is the top loader was a cheap piece of shit, and Nintendo was basically trying to sell the NES as a budget console at that time. So that's why they took out the lockout chip from the top loader, because they weren't pushing that. They were pushing the Super Nintendo when the top loader came out. So there you go. So not every single game is probably going to work on a first try, but you know, it's nice to have a console where you can just put the games in and not have to think about, oh, how many times do I have to put it in and out before it works. So Gyrus, I love this game. It's one of my favorite. So we're having good luck here. It's just you put the games in and that's it. They work. So having clean games and a clean console is pretty important. That goes for any system, but the NES especially. Because even a top loader can have issues too. If your carts are dirty, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. Only the top loader doesn't really give you any sign, since there's no lockout chip and there's no power LED, so that kind of sucks, but just how it is. So when I do use rubbing alcohol, it's only to pretty much maintain the cartridges. I'm not going to sit there and take every single game apart and clean it with the wax cleaner all the time. I'm just going to take a Q-tip and use the like 99% or 91% rubbing alcohol to basically maintain my cartridges. So, and as far as all the carts saying in the back that you need to use, you can't use rubbing alcohol or anything else like that, this is basically like old marketing bullshit where Nintendo didn't want you to use rubbing alcohol and Q-tips or whatever. They wanted you to buy their cleaning kits instead. So, and it's actually interesting though, because their cleaning kits do kind of tell you to use rubbing alcohol in them, only to use rubbing alcohol on their cleaning wands. So this game's pretty cool. Cool for a racing game. It's actually one of the few times where Acclaim made a good game and didn't fuck it up. This game on a Genesis, however, is absolute horseshit. Super Off-Road, a game that used to cost, I don't know, like $3 until Cinemassacre reviewed it, and now it's like $10 for some reason. Still a fun game, but still, one of those things where the internet ruined it. Yeah. These are all my racing games, by the way. I keep all my stuff organized, so this is whatever random batch of games I grabbed. This game's pretty sweet, actually. It's got save states in it. Pretty damn good graphics, too. That's one of the things I always liked about the NES, was like how kind of spread out it was as far as different genres. It did everything, like, not perfectly, but it did them pretty well. This game is a pain in the ass. It's not that common either, but it's a super, super pain in the ass game. It's really hard. This is a later release, and it's pretty good graphics actually. A lot of slowdowns in it, unfortunately, but still pretty neat. It's nothing like the original Spy Hunter. And then we got Spy Hunter. So this game actually has a pretty stiff board on it. So you see what I'm talking about? Not every single game is going to work the first try. But if we take it out, put it in again, what happens? Oh, it works! So, and This game, Built to Win, another late release on a NES. Pretty cool racing game. This game is actually neat because you start off dirt poor and then you work your way up, and it has save states in it and everything else. So it's pretty cool for a NES racing game. It's kind of like an old version of like Forza Motorsports or a Sega GT or something like that. Pretty cool. Eventually. Come on, baby. I hate long intros. Built to Win. Whoa. So, I don't want to lose my save data, so I gotta hold down a reset button and then turn it off. Should have did that with Turbo Racing, but yeah. RC Pro AM2 in his house. I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry for saying it like that. I take that back. Just as much fun as the first one, except more frustrating. And 4-player. And of course the first one, it's so common you can find it everywhere. Let's see, what else do we get? Oh, Rad Racer 2. The unknown sequel to Rad Racer that was supposed to be better, but they stripped out things and made it worse. I don't know how they did that or why. It's like the graphics are not really any better. They took out the Formula One car, and I think the music they messed up on too or something. I don't know. Not as fun, but I have it just because. It's also pretty cheap. Let's see, what other games can I dig out for you guys here? How long is this video? So it's pretty goddamn long. Alright, so I'm going to end it there because I'm actually putting myself to sleep, but you get the idea. So these things can be reliable. You just need to pick out a system that's in good shape to begin with. You can't pick one that was in a flood or in someone's freaking basement where the basement filled up with water or it's super moist to begin with. It all comes down to how good of a condition the system was in to begin with, but it also comes down to your technical skills. You can't expect something that's 30 years old to be reliable, and unless you do work to it to fix it to make it reliable, you can't expect that. So, basically learn how to fix this stuff. Don't use sandpaper ever. I hate the internet when it comes to repair videos because I hate people that use sandpaper because they just don't know when to stop sanding. They keep sanding down past the copper, past the solder. They go into the PCB and they're like, oh, why doesn't it work anymore? And it's like, oh, because you kind of sanded the traces off of the board so it doesn't work, So whatever. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on the front loader. It is reliable. Just needs to be cleaned. That's all.